Welcome to the Coaches Spotlight Podcast, the show where you'll be listening to coaches from around the globe that share their pitfalls and struggles all the way up to what made them successful in their field. Ready to catapult your coaching business past the competition? Then grab your favorite beverage and get ready to listen to meaningful conversations and learn from industry experts. Here's your host, Oliver Momeni.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Coaches Spotlight. Our next guest is an internationally recognized award-winning voice actor with hundreds of roles in film, TV, animation, video games, and anime to his credit. He's a dynamic public speaker and the creator of Relationship Sales Dynamics, which dives deep into the relationship matrix of biz, love, and life. He is an author of 3 books, Certified NLP Coach and Certified Bank Trainer with BANKCODE, and a 20-year veteran in the real estate investment world. Please welcome Spike Spencer. Glad to have you on the show, Spike.
Well, I am absolutely honored and glad to be here as well, Oliver.
Now, we always start off the show with getting an insight from our guests with what they're specialized in and what is the outcome they guide people towards. In other words, what is your signature coaching program, Spike?
My signature coaching program, basically, I call it Relationship Sales Dynamics. And I teach people how to see the matrix of relationships in business, love, and life. Doesn't really matter. Relationships are the most important thing that we have. And they're so aligned with dating and business that when one fails, the other fails so many times. Divorce, bankruptcy, yada, yada, yada. So I help people see how everyone is moving. It's almost becoming like Sherlock Holmes, and you see why people are doing things. So instead of fighting, you're asking questions like, oh, why did that happen? And it just helps you connect on a deeper level faster than anything else that I've ever seen.
So if you want to find out more about Spike's program, then head on over to spikespencer.com. Now, before we move on, for those of you that are a coach or a consultant, or you want to become one and have not created your signature program yet, then you're leaving a ton of money on the table. But no worries, I got you covered. My team and I have put together a guide that teaches exactly how to design your signature program. The exercises throughout the guide will systematically help you in creating a successful program all the way up to how much to charge for it. So if you want to grab a free copy of this guide, then head on over to coachesspotlight.com/guide. That's coachesspotlight.com/guide. Now, Spike, before we really dig in, tell us, what differentiates you from other coaches in your industry that guide people to the same outcome that you lead them to?
I'm a whole lot funnier. I like to have a great time. You know, it's so many people are so damn boring.
Yep.
And I like to have a good time. I like to laugh. I tell people, if you're not laughing, you're not living. So if you're having a relationship and you're not happy in that relationship, then why are you in it?
Yes.
It's just going to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to either shift it or leave it. And you have to make a decision. And the first step is, well, let's break it down. Let's look at the relationship. Let's look at why these things are happening. And there are so many ways of doing that.
Okay, let's stay here for a sec. What do you exactly mean with leave the relationship? Let's say you've been with someone for 10 years and you've noticed that something doesn't feel right. Are you saying to just finish the relationship, or should we try to fix the one or other thing?
Well, there are many ways of handling that. When I say end the relationship, you're going to end the relationship as it is, period. If it's not working, you're going to end that specific relationship, and you can find a new one with that same person, that same business, that same everything, but you can't go back to the old paradigm. You know, if once you see something is wrong, you fix it. So if you know that there's a problem with a relationship and you say, oh, now I see what the problem is, don't you usually fix that? You do. And if you see that there is no way to fix that problem, then you're going to have to go another way. And it's better to find out early on rather than 10, 20, 30 years down the road when it's going to be a huge explosion and a lot of problems. So it's like worrying about the little bitty hurts, the little bitty problems. It's a little uncomfortable to have this conversation now, whereas 10 years down the road, it's not only uncomfortable, it could be public, it could be nasty, it could be ruining the business, a marriage, etc. So deal with it now. Most people don't know what they're even looking at, though, in a relationship. So that's what I mean. You're going to end the relationship as you know it, because you're going to see things that you haven't seen before, and those lights will go off. And it makes it more fun. It really does.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So we should throw the old relationship overboard and work on building something new with the same person, as long as it still makes sense. What do you recommend if someone enters a new relationship? What should they look out for so they don't find themselves in the same situation that we just talked about?
Well, basically, communication is the main thing. Now, I've said this many, many times. Miscommunication is actually missed communication. Yes. MISSID. Because everyone tells you what they want and need. They just do it in their own language. So if they're speaking a certain language and you can't understand that language, then you're in trouble. It's like, you're in Spain. Well, what if you don't speak Spanish? Or I'm in Australia and I don't say, "G'day, mate." You're not going to connect with the people because they're not going to understand you. And if they can't understand you, then obviously you're going to have an issue. So going in to any relationship, you have to be open. You have to be willing to put away some expectations, because I say this in the dating world for sure. Expectation kills a date. Expectation can kill a business or a relationship, because instead of expecting something, ask. And so many people don't. And that's where when you're going into something, you also have to know boundaries. I talk about that in one of my books. I say, if you know the boundary, you know how far somebody's going to be pushed before they're going to react back at you. And that's very, very important that you're clear on your boundaries. You're clear on all aspects of the business and or relationship. It really is communicating at a deep, deep level.
Oh, absolutely. It always starts with communication, either verbal, nonverbal, or visual. I guess the most important aspect of any relationship is being able to talk about everything. Let it be the little things as well as the big things. If you can't talk with your partner on the deepest level, then something is not right. I see my wife as my best friend. She's the one that knows everything about me. In other words, if your partner doesn't know you better than your mom, then you haven't opened up enough for them to do so, or he or she was not interested enough to know all about you. Which leads me to ask you to share with us a success quote or mantra and an example of how you've applied its meaning in your life.
It's interesting. I've had so many success quotes over my years, and there's one right now that I'm really enjoying. I believe it was from Amanda Francis, my wife, who is also a certified high performance coach and all kinds of amazing coach. And she told me about it, and it just resonated so well with me that right now I'm saying the manifestation of all my desires is happening right now. Mm-hmm. And that works on such a good subconscious level. I've worked with so many, and whatever resonates with me, I kind of pick and choose that. I want to stay in it. And if you say the same thing over and over again, after a while, it kind of loses its luster. And you have to have that feeling to get you on that frequency, the vibration, et cetera, to keep things going. This is why I say in relationships, you have to have fun. You have to enjoy it. You have to connect. And I think that's the same thing that I'm doing with whatever quote or mantra I'm having at the time. I'll try something new until it just kind of fades away. And I'm like, nah, that's not doing it anymore. It's really about the feeling.
Funny you're saying that. I see it the same way, because it's not only about the quote, it's also a lot about how a quote fits in our life during that time. Spike, share with us, what was the main reason why you started your coaching business?
Well, it's interesting. I started coaching. I've done some coaching for many, many years. I did some things for actors back in Houston, and I've taught some voiceover acting and things of that nature. But what really got me into the relationship side of it was a drastic situation change in my life. And if you don't mind, I'll share a little bit about the divorce, bankruptcy, etc. So I was in Houston and I was married. I had been with her for 13 years in a solid relationship. And a lot of good things going on. I was doing real estate. I flipped about 60 houses on my own. And I had a big house up in the suburbs, like 4,000 square feet, 4,000 square feet with a dojo and a pub and 3 dogs, nacho, fajita, and burrito. And I thought everything was going pretty well. On the acting side as well, I was doing some acting. I just finished a film with Frank Langella. So things were happening in all realms. I was like, wow, things are going pretty darn well. Until I found out that my wife was having an affair with my best friend.
Whoops.
And that ended everything very, very rapidly. And it gave me the wake-up call that I needed. I didn't want it. I didn't like it, but it was done. And there was no turning back. As soon as I found out, I filed for divorce the next day and said, that's it. I'm done. And over 2 months, I lost 30 pounds, got ripped. I call it the despair trim diet. I don't really recommend it, but it is very effective. And, lifting weights with hate, you're like, arr, arr, arr.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of guys out there are shaking their heads right now. Yep, I know. And so then I moved to LA, and I had lost everything. And, of course, they couldn't run the business, the real estate stuff, so that tanked. So everything tanked. I literally lost everything. And sadly, pretty much everybody I knew and loved, because her family was my family and his family was my family. Right. They were the people that I went to, because I'd go see my family every now and then, but my parents my mother had already passed. And so it's not just like, oh, well, the business tanked, go home for the family and the kids. I didn't have any of that. I moved to LA knowing 4 people with not much money at all. And I moved into an apartment that was the size of my old living room and was more than my old mortgage.
Right.
So, yeah, that was a wild thing. And I told people, I was down to the very, very bottom of where I could possibly be. And I took a snub-nosed 38 and put it to my temple, cocked the trigger, and I was ready to go. I cocked it back, and I started to squeeze, and then something told me no. And I don't know what that was. I say it was my better self stepping in and saying, this is not the end. This is only the beginning. And when I went to LA, I was just distraught, and I started to figure out, okay, what do I really want to do? And I started to look at things that I knew, that I understood, which was self-help and personal growth. I knew I had to get back in the game, so I started reading about dating and relationships and inner peace and being the best man, father, husband, lover, anything that I could be. And over the course of time, I started dating again, and I dated a certain way, which became my book, Food Game. And I dated a lot, some amazing women, and I got my mojo back in a big way. And along the road there, being a voice actor, which was pretty much all that I did in Hollywood, I found out that I was kind of famous. One of my friends in LA, I told her, I said, look, I just want to travel the world and eat great food and have a blast. And she's like, well, go to conventions and be a guest because you're famous. I was like, what? I am? Cool. And so I started going to conventions, and the reason I'm tying that in is because as I went to conventions, as I was doing the work on myself, I was giving these talks, and I started steering those talks more towards personal growth and self-help. So I've been in front of thousands of people teaching about dating and relationships internationally, and it just has kind of snowballed into me putting together more platforms and teaching one-on-one and developing programs to strengthen relationships from a guy who's been out there and actually done the field research. And I've built businesses, and I've got an amazing wife now who is phenomenal, and a 3-year-old boy. So it all moved towards that. So all of that bad has moved toward the absolute wonderful good.
Listening to you felt like going back in time, as there was a moment in my life where I also lost everything. From one day to another, I was diagnosed with a rare stomach disease in 2008 that also caused me not only to lose my job I had worked for, but also my marriage went down the drains because she couldn't handle my sickness. It's a longer story, so I'm not going to get into it here, but if you want to catch up on it, then head on over to the first episode of this podcast where I talk about how I beat death in those days and later on started my online business. That being said, as we were talking pre-interview, everything in life leads us to one day saying, maybe I can help others with what I figured out, which means people can't just buy a book on it or buy a course or go on a seminar. They need someone that has skin in the game and has experienced what they want to get away from or transition to, right?
It's very true. Oh, let me say one more thing I forgot to tell you. We also have a similar physical situation because I had my spine fused the year before all this went down.
Oops.
So I was like, that hurt.
Yeah, I can imagine that hurt big time. Spike, tell us, was there anything holding you back from becoming a coach?
I never really sought to be a coach. It wasn't like I'm going to be a coach. It was just like, I just want to help. I just want to be able, I tell people in my talks, I say, look, take what you like, leave the rest. It doesn't matter. But if anything that I say, anything that I can teach, any of the techniques, the tools, the mindset, anything that I say, if that can help you not have to go through what I did, I win.
Love it. Love it. Spike, looking back, would you have done anything differently before you began your career as a coach?
I really don't know because it's like, that's that hindsight thing. And hindsight, it's like, well, you could have done this. I did everything I could to the best of my ability with what I had at the time. And I have to say that this is exactly the path I'm supposed to be on. And if I think differently, I'm going to be shoulding all over myself, which I call it. I was like, maybe I should have done this or I should have done that. It's like, you know what? I did what I did. It's perfect and precise and exactly what brought me where I'm supposed to be. That mindset is what I feel is solid.
I like that. Spike, let's talk about failure. Take us back to a time in your life and tell us that story where you've experienced failure and share with us the lessons you have learned from it.
Well, that the thing about failure is and there's so many quotes about it. Look, failure is only failure if you fail to learn a lesson. If you don't learn anything from it, then you betcha it's failure. Like you sucked it up.
Yep.
It's like, well, that's it, man. But I learned from it all. And the biggest takeaway for me that I've told guys, I said, look, my ex cheated on me. Okay, I got that. That's fine. But guess what? I am taking ownership of that. This is the most powerful lesson that I learned, mainly from neurolinguistic programming. It's cause versus effect. And I said, and I didn't even know NLP at the time. And I said, I have to take 100% ownership of this. So I have to say, all of this was my fault. And when you do that, you say, okay, then how can I turn that around to make it a win for me? That's the biggest lesson that I learned is once I do that, I now have my power back. Whereas it was completely, I was a victim. I was, oh my God, this happened to me. Everything happened to me. Well, I look at my beautiful wife in there right now and my baby boy, and we're in Australia and I was treated like a rock star a couple months ago. I'm like, yeah, it didn't happen to me. It happened for me, baby. Yeah. I have some great stories and great adventures that I would not have had that all not happened to me. And I will tell you this, as a coach, if I had not had all that happen to me, I would not have the ability to see the things that I can see in other people's relationships. So I have to be grateful for every single thing that happened. And if I can turn my mind around that way and take ownership of it, then that's where the power lies, right there.
First of all, I love the quote you just shared. Failure is only a failure if you fail to learn a lesson. It actually reminds me of another quote. You're never a failure until you fail to get up, which is so true if you think about it. However, it's not failing that automatically leads to success. It's failing and then getting back up, brushing off the dust, and trying again and again until you succeed. Fact of the matter is, coming back from failure teaches resilience, and resilience is the single quality all successful people have in common. The way I see it is, life brings us to reach specific checkpoints, but we only reach them if we've gathered enough experience throughout playing the game of life. Pretty much like playing a video game. So by reaching these checkpoints, they make us aware, okay, now I'm ready to step it up a notch, i.e., I'm now ready for the next level of my life, because you see the matrix of whatever it is you want to accomplish. And as you said, Spike, I'm meant to do what I'm doing now. But you probably weren't ready for it a few years ago, as everything and everyone needs to develop, and that takes time, right?
When you said that, it's like, yes, as long as you maintain an attitude of curiosity about life and asking yourself, I tell people, instead of being certain and so stuck in your ways, always come to it with an attitude of, well, what if I'm wrong? What if? Just what if?
Right.
And then now you're curious. You're like, I wonder how they feel and how they came to that, or how this is all put together. It's just curiosity is very important.
But don't mistake what if I'm wrong with self-doubt. Like Spike said, it's about being curious, specifically about what's happening around you, and not to take it as a setback just because something didn't go the way you wanted the first time you tried, which can quickly turn into having the victim mentality and complain with, poor me, it didn't work out, boo-hoo. Don't forget, when it does not go as planned, then you're receiving feedback from life, and it's up to us to take that feedback and use it to our advantage.
Yep. And I've been there. Boy, have I been there. And sometimes I get there, and, it's a fun little trick that Kim and I do since we're both coaches. If she gets in that rut and I can see it, and I have a certain phrase that I will tell her, and if I get in my rut, she'll have a certain phrase that she will tell me. It's like, hey, are you doing this or are you doing that, and it just kind of clicks. It's like, oh, okay, I got it. Thank you for telling me. Now I'm gonna go do some push-ups and get back in gear.
I say it over and over again. Failing your way to success is the only way.
Yeah, success really isn't that great of a teacher. It's like, oh, I did it. It worked. Okay. But what if something goes wrong? Then you're like, oh my God, I have no idea. I've had so many things go wrong in like real estate deals and relationships and businesses. I can tell you 10 different ways that something can go haywire. And now that you know those things and I can see those things, then I can help, especially in relationships when you see, oh, I know why that person did that. And I know what they're probably thinking right now and why you said that thing. And now you're at loggerheads with them and you're in a fight because of this, that, and that. Now, fix those 3 things and everything's good.
Yep. Spike, what is the one common myth about being a coach that you want to debunk?
That it's easy. I swear to God, I saw an ad the other day. It's like, become a life coach certified for $7. I'm like, my ass.
You're kidding. Where do you see that?
I'm not kidding. I've seen people like going, you get certified for this much. I'm like going, well, that is definitely not what I paid to get my certifications. But I'm just like, wow. And the term life coach, this is fun for me because Kim told me this a long time ago. People are like, are you a life coach? I'm like going, hell no, I don't want to be with you for life. I want to fix your ass and get you out the door. Let's go.
That's a good one. Spike, share with us a story of a time in your journey when you had an aha moment. Take us back to that very moment and talk about the steps you took to turn that moment into success.
I think what's interesting, the aha moment that I had was when I was on my journey personally. And now I'm able to tell people about it because when I was after my divorce and I was in LA, the hardest dating world to be in, and I'm learning internally, I've got to get myself right. I've got to get this right. So I'm constantly doing work on myself. And one day, I don't even remember exactly what it was that happened, but I think it was an interaction with someone, with a woman, and it was just like we were talking or something. I saw it. It just clicked right there. I'm like going, oh my God, I see the Matrix. I know what she's going to do. I know what she's thinking. I know what to say right now. And boom, 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 boom. I did it. And I was just like, oh my God, I got it. I got it. And it's like people are always second guessing themselves. That right there, everything smoothed out. My mind smoothed out, my attitude. I suddenly had the confidence, and I knew I had it. I wasn't searching for it anymore. It's that moment when somebody just knows, you're like, wow, I'm really good at this, and you just got it. Like with voiceover, same thing. I didn't know how good I was, and then they're like, well, you're famous. I'm like, well, I'm really good at this. And I kept telling myself, you're auditioning, you're not getting roles. That's part of the process. That's fine. But once you get over that and go, wow, you know what? I really know what I'm doing. I'm really good at what I do. Cool. Now let's have fun. You're not going out there now to try to prove anything. You've proven it on your inside. On the inside, once you've proven it there, once you become, you don't have to do anything else. You're already there. And that was my biggest aha. When I tell people one day you're going to get it, you're going to feel it. And you're just going to be like, whoa, oh, that's what Spike was talking about. That's pretty cool.
The thing is this. I believe deep down, we all know what we're capable of, even if that little voice up there tries to screw with us. Now, before we move on, tell us, what got you into voiceover, Spike?
Oddly enough, I wanted to be an actor from 10th grade in high school. I auditioned for I went to drama because I wanted to be a lawyer, actually. And then I auditioned for a play. I was like, okay, I'll do that. I got the lead role. And after the curtain went up, I was just like, oh my God, they're applauding me. I'm done. Thank you. I'm home. And so I kept that up, went to U of H, got a baccalaureate degree from the honors program, trained with some of the best teachers in the world, and nobody cares. Nobody's ever asked me for that. So I went pro back in 87, and I was in Houston. So I was doing work out of, Dallas, Austin, and New Orleans. It was kind of a big hub. And it took some time, and I was getting better at it. And then I started doing, when you're an actor in that arena, you do everything. You do corporate training videos, you'll do movies, you do radio, TV, whatever it is, doesn't matter. You don't really specialize. But I really got into voice acting. The one that made me kind of famous in the niche is anime, Japanese anime, dubbing that into English, which is a very specific skill. It's the hardest voiceover job there is. And it pays the least, oddly enough.
Oops.
But you do get to go all over the world and be treated like a rock star sometimes. And so I started doing that because I was on a live action film with a woman who was directing that in Houston. Turns out that was like the main hub of Japanese animation in the country at the time. And it was just sheer luck that I jumped in, and I was really good at it. And I did a lot of work there. And then until everything, fell apart, I went out to Hollywood. And that's basically all I've done for the last 15 years. My main thing was voiceover, paid my bills. And it was just like, wow, I'm talking goofy for a living. And so I started, I do that. I talk in front of people. So that's my catchphrase. Spike Spencer talks goofy for a living, ... seriously. So when I'm talking, that's a big part of my shtick. Sometimes I start in a different voice, and it doesn't matter. So it's weird. But I've done hundreds of voices, and it's a thing. It's part of what I do, and I love doing it. It's not like I'm going to stop doing that to keep coaching. It's so much fun. Why would I?
Exactly. As long as it gives you joy, there's no reason to stop. Now, you already touched upon my next question a bit, but let's dig much deeper. Do you see it as a requirement being certified as a coach, or do you think people can start their coaching business and get certified later on?
No, you don't have to be certified. You don't. I mean, think about it this way. I am certified. I love certifications because I just like learning. That's part of my personality. And my value system. I want to learn because I want to have more tools. So yes. I'm consistently learning. Next thing on my list is to become a certified high performance coach with Brendan Burchard, like my wife, because I love it. I love Brendan, and I love all of that. So it's just more things. It just gives me more tools to help other people. Now, do I have to have that? Nobody's certified to teach dating and relationships. I was out in the field. I was doing it. So if a guy's like, well, how did you do that? Well, let's talk about it because I can show you. I wrote a book about it. You can read that. But I'm like, if you want to go one-on-one, let's talk. It's all about, what I learned and what I developed, because that's my story. If you've got something that you've done that's in your life and you can teach and train other people, then there's your life experience. You got it.
Well, that's a mic drop right there, Spike. You nailed it, man. And you're spot on with that. It all comes down to experience. The reason why I have this question in here is because I get this asked on a weekly basis by my clients, and I always answer the same thing. You don't need to be certified to get going. However, if you see that being a coach is something you want to do for the next 5, 10, or even more years, then a certification won't hurt, because it will give you a framework how to lead your clients to reach their end goal. With that said, you need to know your stuff inside out. No certification is going to teach you what you're supposed to be good in, so don't hinder yourself thinking you can't coach because you don't have a piece of paper hanging on the wall. We should not forget, your prospect has no clue what it means if you tell them, I've been certified. Certified by whom? By what? It's not like you're telling them, I have a diploma from Harvard, Yale, or Oxford. Even if you would tell them, I've been certified by ICF. Really? Who? Don't get me wrong, ICF is a great organization, but I know who they are because I'm a coach. But believe me, your prospect don't know who they are. So if you want to get certified, do it for yourself and not because you're thinking it's going to impress the prospect or client.
Well, and the question also is, certified in what? It's like, if I'm going to teach a CPR course, I might want to be certified in CPR. But if I'm a life coach and I'm trying to teach CPR, that's kind of weird. It's like, you want to be certified in what you want to teach. I love relational stuff. So relationships. So I know the dating stuff. I know neuro-linguistic programming. I know the BANKCODE certified, the personality system. I understand 5 love languages, and there's so many different things, but it's all geared towards helping me help people connect. Getting a certification from something else that doesn't really matter. It's like, I'm a certified coach. Well, who cares? Mm-hmm. Will it help me with my relationship? I don't know. So it really depends. And I would say do that for you, because if you want to, I just did a podcast today on imposter syndrome. And it was like, you know what? If you're doing it to prove that you need it, then like you just said, then you're not doing it for your client. Your client just wants the result. And if you can give them that result, then awesome. Stop second guessing yourself and just give them that result if you can. Exactly. If you want to do it because it enhances what you do, great.
One thing is for sure, no certification is going to get anybody magically new clients. Did you know 87% of coaches or consultants from around the globe go out of business in their first year? And the main reason why they go out of business is because they didn't figure out how to generate a steady stream of new clients. Therefore, my team and I have created a workshop that outlines exactly what we do to generate a consistent stream of new clients month in, month out for our business and for our clients. So if you're a coach or consultant and you're committed to changing more lives with your expertise, then I encourage you to register for the free masterclass. Just imagine to never wonder where your next clients are going to come from next month. And all you need to do to make that a reality is head over to clientsindroves.com. That's clientsindroves.com and register for the free training. Spike, are you ready for the Thunder Round?
Thunder, thunder, thunder. Let's do it, baby.
All right. If you could go back in time and meet the 20-year-old Spike, what advice would you give yourself?
You should probably not have that mullet, number one. Number two, look inside. All the work you want to do, it really is about not how to do A, B, or C. It's all about how to become who you need to be happy on the inside first, and everything else will follow. Boom.
What is the one thing most people don't know about you?
It depends on which side. Most people don't know that I'm a coach in the voiceover world, and most people in the coaching world don't understand what I do with voices. So it's kind of an interesting situation there. I guess most people don't really know I used to be a break dancer the first time around. Probably why I broke my back.
Tell me about it, man. Breakdancing and BMX. Bad combination. My body's a mess. Anyway, if you could meet one person you have not met yet, what would you ask them, or what would you want to know from them?
I think I stole this from somebody else, but it was so true, and it rang to me. I was like, yes, God, I want to ask him that. I'd want to meet God or Jesus, either way, and say, mosquitoes. What the hell?
That's a good one, man.
Why? I hate mosquitoes, man.
What is the best advice you have ever received?
The best advice, oddly enough, this is kind of weird. My father, who was my coach, basically, he was a pessimist. So he would say things like, don't stand out. Always be towards the middle. And that did not resonate with me. I'm like, I want to be at the front. He's like, he was always the middle thing. It was like, stay in the middle. And I'm just like, no, I just can't. I can't be that pessimist. And that really, really helped me because it was kind of the anti-coaching for me. So I knew what I didn't want to be. And I watched that. So I just kind of said, okay, you go that way. I know how I am going to go the other way. Thank you, Dad.
Now, before I ask you about your favorite book, let's first talk about your book with the title, Food Game, A Man's Ultimate Recipe for Dating Success.
Yes. It's a food game. It's a manly man's dating man sort of man thing. So Food Game, A Man's Ultimate Recipe for Dating Success is basically how I dated for years in Los Angeles, being a very, not completely poor, but sometimes I was down to my last dime and I wanted to date. And I was like, well, what can I do? It's one of the things I teach. It's like, hey, let's take inventory. What all do you have? What all can you do? I'm a foodie. I love to cook. And by the way, I cannot wait to come out to Spain and go all over Spain. I've been to Barcelona, but I'm going to go everywhere and I'm going to eat everything.
Awesome. Mi casa, tu casa, man. Get down.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk. So I said, well, how can I do this? How can I date? I don't have the money to go out. And I don't like that concept anyway. The old outdated concept, take her to dinner, spend a lot of money, never see her again. And my wife validated this. She goes, oh, yeah, we'll go to dinner with somebody just to order the lobster. Oh, yeah. I was like, I knew it. So what I did was I would say, I would cook and I would invite them over. And we'd have a wonderful meal. And if it went somewhere, great. If it didn't, great. It's an expectation I talk about. But the whole concept is I can cook better than a lot of these restaurants. And I can do it super cheap. I can afford it. Plus, we're already past the whole BS of, well, let's all go out here and let's see if anybody's going to go to somebody's place afterwards or any of that. She's already there.
Yeah.
So already likes you. It's already good. She thinks you're cool. She believes in you enough that she'll be safe while you wield a large cutting instrument. And so that was the concept. And I did it a lot. I dated a lot of amazing women, including a Playboy Playmate, a Jedi, and a Terminator. That's for you Hollywood people. You love it. Being a nerd, a sci-fi nerd, I nerd out on that, dude. Seriously.
Yeah.
And they're all amazing people. They're amazing people. It's about having fun in dating because so many people are like, oh my God, it's so hard to date. Why? Have fun. Have fun. And that's the way I teach it. And now it's a real simple concept, but I always say, yeah, but you got to get her there. So you got to become that man. And that's what the book is about. It's not about gaming. It's not about pickup. It's not about any of that. It's about becoming the kind of man that a woman will come to your apartment for. And that's a pretty bold thing to say. And I know because I did it. I teach it. It's cool.
Yeah.
And it's tasty.
Right. Would you say, let me ask you like this. I'm married to my wife for over 11 years. Would it make sense to read the book, although I'm not going to go on any dates?
Absolutely. Right. I say it all the time. I said, always be dating your wife. Always be dating.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, because it's like, and it's hard. Dude, you've been 11 years, it's difficult because you get into that, that routine and, communication is more difficult. So that's why we have to be a little bit more, the longer your relationship goes on, it's really the more open you need to be.
Yep, absolutely.
And that can be kind of a difficult thing. But yes, always be dating, because there's that tweak, that little oomph that gets lost somewhere. And I can go into this for like hours with you, but yeah, always be dating your wife and have fun. And I cook like every day because my wife does not cook, and I'm not going to let her. Ooh. But she's amazing, and she loves my food, and I love to cook. So, as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to make a big pot of red sauce, and it's going to be tasty. So,
ooh, red sauce. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Luckily, we both like to cook, but she is on a different level than I am. And I presume that's because she is Russian. Not only is she a great cook, but she's also an incredible woman. And on top of that, she is very beautiful. She can cook food that is out of this world. And I don't mean only Russian food. She can cook anything. When she cooks Thai, I think I'm eating somewhere in Bangkok, and we've been to Asia multiple times. When she makes a ramen soup, I think I'm sitting in a Japanese restaurant somewhere. Not only that, but she even cooks Persian food. Why? Because I'm half Persian, which totally blows my mind.
Damn it, Oliver, I'm hungry already.
I'm telling you, man, she's something else. Anyhow, so Spike, tell us, what is your favorite book and why?
Oddly enough, my favorite book is old school. It's The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. I will reread that thing over and over and over again when I get stuck with something and I'm like, I'm just not manifesting right. I'm not feeling it. I'll get it out and I'll just read it. I'll read it over and over again. I know it's outdated, but the concepts are so solid, and I love the old guys who are pretty much the foundation for everyone else. All the coaches that we know, the most popular coaches, go, well, who did you read from? Well, I'll just go back to that, because I don't want to have to go through their filters. I want it to go through my filter. So let me have some of that, or As a Man Thinketh, or The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, things like that you have to reread and you find something new every time, and I just love that. Those are the kind of things that I really dig.
Now, before I ask you the last question, tell us a bit about your podcast.
Yeah, I love it. Podcasting, as you know, is so much fun. I love it. And I have a podcast called the Mind Scrambler Podcast. And it's all about scrambling the stories and the junk that we have been fed all our lives, and giving giving you some new tools, new techniques, some new ideas, new mindsets, so that you can deal with it in a better way. Like, first of all, stop watching the news and the radio and all that, because we've been programmed from day one. We've been programmed. Our parents programmed us. We're getting consistently programmed by the media. And I'm all about, hey, let's talk about this today, and let's scramble that up a bit. And I like the Mind Scrambler because it makes sense. It's kind of, oddly enough, my subconscious mind gave me that name, and I was so astounded that nobody already had it. And I was like, well, thank you, subconscious mind. So I got it, and it just works. It just feels right to me. So what I'm doing now is, it's for anybody. Anybody can listen to it. These are universal things, but I'm kind of focusing right now, this one, on I'm going to bring in business people in my world, which is the nerd world. Anime, animation, comics, sci-fi, fantasy, gaming, all that, video games, all of that. People that I know that I can get to, some very famous people that know me, they're going to come on my show. And I'm not going to have them on just because they're in voiceover or in anime, but because they're in personal growth and self-help, and they've got something to say. And because I don't think that world really has that much of personal growth in it. I've seen it. I've been in front of it, for years internationally. So I think there's a niche there. So I'm not saying, I'm going over here for business people, but the stuff that I say, business people, anybody can really, really get, because I'm going on deep levels sometimes. Sometimes I'll just talk about sci-fi and it's fun. But most of the time it's, as you've seen, some of the titles are quite fun because I like to have fun. I pop into crazy voices from time to time, and we talk about deep issues, but I do it in a way that's fun and you can understand it. It's not this, you've got to do this, and you've got to do this, and you've got to do this. It's like, hey, what if this happened? What if this or that or over there. And I try to open the mind and just kind of scramble up the junk that's there and make it clear.
Definitely a podcast to check out, as I listened to a few episodes before we invited Spike to come on the show. And if I remember right, the first episode I listened to was called You Farted and That's Okay. Now, it had nothing to do with farting, but more with that we're all human and self-forgiveness and why we should get off our own back kind of thing. So go check out the Mind Scrambler podcast. Then let's wrap up this podcast with the last question, and then we'll say goodbye. Who do you specifically work with, and who should contact you if they want to work with you? Basically, who is your ideal client, Spike?
My ideal client, I have two ideal clients, and they could actually be one and the same. So I can work with just about anybody, but ideally what I'm really, really strong with are successful guys who have not quite made it successful in their relationship. They can be married, it can be business, it doesn't matter. I've worked with women, I've worked with men, but ideally, I really, really shine with these guys who need to just get a couple of blocks out of their way. They could be have a lot of money, but they're just not quite happy in their relationships. That I can really, really rock and roll with. The other one is, and we didn't talk about the real estate that much, but real estate investors who are in their own way, who have probably not made a deal, but want to, and they're letting their brain get in the way. Instead of getting out there and doing it. And I know I've made a lot of deals, and I know this brain bog that people have. So I can help people get out of the way and really get out there and make some deals. Plus, I've got a whole lot of insight on real estate. So those are my two best right there.
So if you want to connect with Spike, head on over to spikespencer.com or visit coachesspotlight.com and type Spike in the search bar, and you'll find the show notes to this episode and all the links that lead to Spike. With that said, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Spike, it was more than a pleasure having you on the show, brother.
Great for me, man. Loved it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Coaches Spotlight podcast. If you liked the show, then please make sure to rate us, leave a review, and subscribe. We appreciate your support. See you next time.